Okay, we've had some tech issues earlier on, so I thought I would just make a video just kind of going through everything as if it was the lesson, and then you guys can just follow along. So what I want you to do is each time we come to a question, if you could just pause the lesson, have a go at it yourself, and then just play, and you can see me go through it. So we already got through a lot of the mean stuff, but I'm just going to go over that again. Okay, so firstly we had some quick definitions. So with the mean we want to add all the numbers up, divide by how many there are, and then the median we write all the numbers in order. So questions will quite often give you the numbers all kind of jumbled up, but then you'll just reorder them smallest to largest, and then basically just kind of cross off each side until you get to the center number, and that will be the median. And then remember, mode equals most, so the mode is the most common number. And then to get the range we just need to take away the smallest number from the largest number. So what we need to do for this is just work out the mean, median, mode and range, and these are called descriptive statistics for this set of data. Okay, so first what we want to do is best to think of this as a fraction, especially if you've got a scientific calculator, which all of you will need to get at some point. Then it's best to just put this in as a fraction. We need to do 8 plus 4 plus 6 plus 2 plus 9 plus 13 plus 2 plus 17 plus 4 plus 2 plus 5, and all of that over how many numbers there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So all of that over 11, and then we'll just put that into our calculator. So 8 plus 4 plus 6 plus 2 plus 9 plus 13 plus 2 plus 17 plus 4 plus 2 plus 5. Then over 11, and that gives us 6.54. Okay, and then the median, we need to put all of these numbers in order smallest to largest. So we've got 3 2's, so 2, 2, 2, and then we've got 4, 4, so we've got 2 4's, 4 and 4. Then we've got 5, 6, 8, 9, 13, and 17. Then I'm just going to quickly count, just make sure we've still got 11, so then I know 100% I've got the right numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so I'm just going to cross one from each end until I get to the number that's at the center. Then I know for definite that's the median. Okay, so we know the median is 5. And then mode is most. That's nice and simple because we've already put it into order here, so we can see there are 3 2's. So then the mode equals 2. And then the range, again we can use the fact we put this into order, so we've got 2 is the smallest, 17 is the biggest, so the difference between them will be 17, take away 2 is 15. Okay, so now a slightly harder mean question. So again, doesn't really change anything, we've got to add all these up. So it's going to be 7 plus 2 plus 18 plus 9 plus 7 plus 12 plus 4 plus 6. Then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then that'd be divided by 8. So again, we're just going to do this on the calculator. You can feel free to do this with column method if you want, but for now we're just going to do it on the calculator, because really we're just trying to focus on the methods today. So we've got 7 plus 2 plus 18 plus 9 plus 7 plus 12 plus 4 plus 6, all that over 8, and then we get 8.125, or you might have gotten 8 remainder 1 if you kind of did that on paper and used bus stop method. You might have got 8 remainder 1, although if you remember from the first lesson, the basics, we do want to go to decimals when we do it in bus stop method, so either way you should be getting an answer of this. Okay. Okay, so now even harder, this is a question from the actual 11 plus. So this is an actual past 11 plus question. So the mean of 5 numbers is 28, and the mean of a different set of 12 numbers is 11. So let's calculate the mean of all the numbers together. So we know that to get the mean, we use the sum of all the numbers divided by how many, which I think now we'll call total, or maybe we'll call it amount, the amount of numbers. So the sum of all the numbers divided by the amount of numbers. Okay, so they've kind of grouped it into two different groups here. So we've got 5 numbers with a mean of 28, and then 12 numbers with a mean of 11. So I'm still going to treat them as separate groups for now, then we're going to bring them all together at the end. So what I'd really like to know is the sum of each of these. Because if we've got the mean, it's 28 and 11, and we've got the amount is 5 and 12, we can easily work out the sum of each one. And then in the end we're going to find out the sum of the total divided by the total amount of the numbers, and then we'll get our answer. So what we know, which if you've experienced with algebra will be quite familiar to you, but if not, then this may be new, but we will be going over algebra in a couple of weeks' time, so don't worry if this doesn't make too much sense. But if the mean equals the sum divided by the amount of numbers, then we could say the sum equals the mean multiplied by the amount of numbers. Okay, so let's do that for both our groups. So we can do 5 times 28, which gives us 140, which is going to be the sum of the first group, and then we've got 12 times by 11, which gives us 132, and that's the sum of the second group. So that means the sum of both groups combined is adding these. We can just do a little column method here, 2, 7, 2. So we know the sum in total is going to be 272, and then there's 5 numbers in one group, there's 12 in the next, so that means there's 17 numbers in total. So then we just need to use this equation again, and we could do the sum 272 divided by 17, and this will give you an answer of 16, which is our final answer in here. And remember, like I said at the start, just pause the video, have a go at each question yourself, even if you did them earlier today, before obviously we had the technical problems. Even if you've already done them, just have another go. Okay, so the mean of 7 numbers is 9, 1 number is removed, and the mean increases to 10, so we need to find which number was removed. Okay, so we know there's 7 numbers, and that gives a mean of 9, so I'm just going to think, at the moment, something divided by 7 is going to be 9. Then we can use the trick we did before, where we do 9 times 7, must give us what goes here. So 9 times 7 is 63, so that must be 63 over 7. So we know that original sum must have been 63. Okay, so now we know they're going to remove 1 number, so now we know there must be 6 numbers, so we know it's going to be something divided by 6, and then that gives us a higher mean of 10. So now we can think there, well, we need to do the exact same thing again. It's going to be 10 times 6 gives us 60, so we know that must go in here, using the exact same technique we did before, where we found that if the mean is the sum divided by the amount, then the sum is the mean times the amount. Okay, so we know that the total sum must have reduced to 60, so the number that must have been removed would be 3, because the sum's gone from 60 to 63 from removing just 1 number. Okay, so that is all the mean questions for today, and now we're up to the point where we left off earlier. Okay, so this is bar graphs. So what I want you to do in the 11 plus is really just be able to read bar graphs, and it generally, I don't think many of you will have a lot of problems with this, so this is one of the easier topics in the 11 plus, I would say. Okay, so the Busy Bees football team are looking at their number of goals scored in each match, and they've drawn a bar chart to show the results. So, and this is one little tip, I always would kind of read both parts of the question first before I attempt the questions, before I even read much of the data. Like, I won't really look at this graph until I've actually read A and B. just so you know what you're looking for when you start to look. So how many matches have they played in total, and how many goals have they scored? So matches played in total. Now I'm going to kind of have a look and try and interpret the graph. So look at the number of goals scored in each match, and have drawn up a bar chart to show the results. So when you see the word frequency, which might be a new word for you, it's basically just saying the number of times something has happened, like how frequently has something happened. So it's basically saying that if we just look at, we just hit this bar at the moment, okay, so they're saying 1 goal was scored in 3 matches, 2 goals were scored in 5 matches, 3 goals were scored in 10 matches, and so on. So basically, if we just add up all the frequencies here, then we're going to find out how many matches they must have played in total. Okay, so first we've got 3, then 5, then 10, then 7, then we've got 4, then 2, and 1. So 3 plus 5 is 8, plus 10 is 18, plus 7 is 25, 4 is 29, plus 2 is 31, 32. So that means 32 matches have been played in total. Okay, so then how many goals have they scored in total? So this is a little more complicated but very similar. So we can think if they've scored 1 goal in 3 matches here, so that means that counts for a total of 3 goals. But then in the next category, so they've scored 2 goals in 5 matches, that means that counts for 10. So we're basically just doing the number of goals times by the frequency, and then we're going to add them all together, kind of like we did before. So if we just make a little space, okay, so we need to do 1 times 3 plus 2 times 5 plus 3 times 10 plus 4 times 7 plus 5 times 4 plus 6 times 2 plus 7 times 1. So I'm not going to try and add all of them together in one go. What I'm going to do instead is just kind of do one bit at a time, just write it slightly simpler. So I'm going to do 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 times 5 is 10, plus 3 times 10 is 30, plus 4 times 4. I think I might have written that slightly wrong there, because that should have been 4 times 7 in this category. Yeah, so always just be careful as you go along. Like if you hear something that doesn't sound right, just kind of check back quickly, because as you can see, very easy to make a little mistake like I just did there. So that should be 4 times 7 is 28. That should be plus there. Plus 5 times 4 plus 20. Plus 6 times 2 plus 12. Plus 7 times 1, just 7. Okay, so now you can either do this in column method, or if you've got a calculator, obviously do it on the calculator. But I think most of you would find this quite easy in your heads. But if you tend to make a lot of mistakes doing this, just use a method, basically. Because some people are going to be better at mental math than others. So if you do tend to make a lot of mistakes with these, just use a method, because it will only take a few seconds longer in column method than doing it in your head. So do 10 plus 3 is 13, plus 30 is 43, plus 28 is going to be 71, plus 20 is going to be 91, plus 12 is going to be 103, plus 7 is going to be 110. That means that in total 110 goals have been scored. Okay, so let's carry on to the next question. So now this is another type of chart you'll see is a pie chart, which you've probably seen before. So it's just kind of divided up, so the size of the pie is the same fraction of the pie as, for example, here mangoes represents. Okay, and these can actually be quite hard questions. So the pie chart below shows information about the percentage of fruits available in a store, and the total number of fruits is 540. So before I even kind of start reading the numbers on the pie chart, I'm actually just going to look at the questions first, same as last time. So what fraction of the fruits is kiwi? Then we want to know how many oranges, the actual number of oranges in the store, and then they want us to work out the value of this angle marked x here, which we can already imagine is going to be the hardest bit. So first of all, fraction of fruits, that's kiwi. So we know 15% of fruits are kiwi. So this takes us back to lesson 3, which was fractions, decimals, percentages. So we know that percentage is essentially that number out of 100. So 15% becomes 15 out of 100. Then it doesn't actually say simplest form, but it's just a good habit to simplify when you can. So let's divide both by 5, and then we'll get 3 out of 20. So 3 out of 20 are kiwi. Okay, and then I want to know how many oranges are there in the store. So they haven't even given us a percent for oranges, but we know that the total must be 100%. So all of these added together must be 100%. So I'm just going to add up all the others. So 30, 15, and 25. So 25, 30, and 15 is going to be 70. It's going to be 70. Okay, so that means that all the rest, the mangoes, kiwis, and apples combined, make up 70% of the fruits, which means that oranges must be the total remainder, which is 30%. They'll be left over to 100. Okay, so we know that 30% of the total number of fruits is going to be the number of oranges. So we want to do 30% of 540. So 30% of 540. And people have a lot of ways of doing this. I like to kind of imagine it in my head as a fraction, so I think of it as 3/10 of 540. And if we remember back to our fractions lesson, we know that when we say of, it's basically like saying times when we're talking about fractions. So this is the same as saying 3/10 times 540. And let's cancel the zeros. So now it's basically just 3 times 54, which is going to be, you might want to do that column method, 54 times 3, 3 4s are 12, 3 5s are 15, plus the 1, 162. So we know that in total there are 162 oranges. Okay, so then definitely the hardest bit here, we need to think about this angle marked x just here. So this is going to be the number of degrees that measure this angle just here, that give us the size of the mango segment. Okay, so what we need to think here is, well, what is this x kind of out of? Because we know that this angle must be 30% of something. Okay, so that's the first connection you make, that this angle must be 30% of something. But then you have to have a think about, well, how many degrees are actually in the full rotation? So when you go all the way around, how many degrees is that? This is one thing you need to keep in your head. In a full rotation, that is 360 degrees. So this angle x is basically going to be 30% of 360 degrees. So let's do very similar to the last question actually. Now we're doing 30% of 360, which is 3/10 times 360. Again, let's cancel the zeros. And let's do 36 times by 3. 3 6s are 18, 3 3s are 9, plus the 1 is 10. So that's 108. So this angle just here is going to be 108 degrees. Okay, then this is the final question on pie charts again. So I did 2 because these are things that are going to really give you a challenge. The bar graph questions, I think all of you will find quite easy by the time you actually get to 11 plus, but these ones, even at GCSE, lots of students are still really struggling. Most students, I would say, even are still really struggling with these questions. Okay, so in a survey, a group of children were asked how many films they had seen in the last week. No one in the group had seen more than 4 films, and the results are shown in the pie chart below. So we need to work out the percentage of children who had seen exactly 3 films, and work out the fraction of children who had seen no films. Give your answer in the lowest terms. Okay, so first of all, we need a percentage who have seen exactly 3 films. So we know this is people who have seen exactly 3 films. And the only information we have about this group is this group makes up 45 degrees out of this circle. And we said on the previous question, we know a full rotation is 360. So we basically need to take out 45 degrees of that, and we're going to think of that as a fraction. Okay, so this group with 3 films, they must represent the fraction that is 45 out of 360. Okay, so this question is basically converting fraction to percentage. And to make this a little easier for ourselves, because this definitely isn't a very nice question to work with, let's simplify it a little bit. So let's divide by 5 top and bottom. So 45 divided by 5 is 9. And then 360 divided by 5, might do a quick bus stop for that. 5's into 360. Not going to go into 3. We'll go into 36 7 times with 1 left over, and it'll go into 10 twice. So 9 over 72. Okay, so now we need to convert this fraction to a percentage. And the best way to do that is generally just going to be to multiply by 100. So if we just times the percentage by 100, times the fraction by 100, then when we simplify that down, it's going to give us the percentage. So let's give ourselves a little space. So we're going to do 9 over 72. We're going to times by 100. So we can say that's 900 over 72. Because remember, when we're timesing a fraction by a whole number, it's just the top, the 9 just here, that's the actual stuff that makes up the fraction. Yeah, because this we imagine is the stuff that we want, and then the rest is just empty space. So the only thing we actually increase when we multiply this fraction is the 9. So we times 9 by 100, gives us 900 over 72. Okay, so, and then that clearly isn't a very nice division to do. That is possible on a calculator, but obviously most 11 plus tests you're not going to have a calculator, so we will need a method of doing these kind of fractions to percentages. So what you want to do whenever you see a fraction like this, especially if it's 2 even numbers, is just simplify. When it's 2 even numbers, just divide by 2. Don't think too much about it until you've started doing that. So 900 divided by 2 is 450. 72 divided by 2 is 36. So still even numbers, so let's do the same thing again. Divide 2 by 2. So 450 divided by 2 is going to be 225. 36 divided by 2 is 18. Okay, so now we might think, well, we could maybe divide that. Divide by 18 isn't too bad, but I highly doubt, because I definitely haven't got that, so I highly doubt many people have that 18 times table just on the top of their head. So what I would do here is I would try and find a number to simplify by again. So best way is just to go from smallest number to largest number, and when there's an odd number, obviously that can't divide by 2, so first thing I'm going to try is 3. So I'm going to think, well, basically do bus stop method in my head just to test if it'll actually go in. So I'd think, well, 3 is into 2, not going to go. 3 is into 22, it's going to go 7 times with 1 left over. Then 3 will go into 15 5 times, so that's definitely going to work. So we can do 225 divided by 3 is 75, and then 18 divided by 3 is going to be 6. So that's much easier for us there now. And then just going to use bus stop method for this. So 75 divided by 6, 6 going to go into 7 once, 1 left over, going to go into 15 twice, 3 left over, we put our 3 on a 0, put our decimal points in here, so 6 goes into 35 times. So we know that will convert to 12.5%. So that means 12.5% of children had seen exactly 3 films. Okay, so now let's work out the fraction of children who had seen no films. Give your answer in lowest terms. Okay, so this group has seen 0 films, and this is actually looking quite difficult because in the other one we just had one where we had no percentage, and we don't even have any degrees. But this time we've got this one and the 2 here. Both of these groups have no percentage or degrees, so we're thinking, well, actually we can't use the same method as last time. But what we do want to know is that Yeah, there's going to be 360 degrees in a full rotation, but in a half rotation, so if I just separate this with that red line, so in a half rotation there's going to be half of 360 degrees. So in this half rotation here, that's going to be 180 degrees. And that's another thing we just need to have memorized. So not something we want to be working out on the spot. This is something we really need to have memorized. Okay, so we know they must all add up to 180. So something here plus 30 plus 45 must equal 180. And I put the question mark because I know some people aren't too familiar with algebra yet. So just think of that as an unknown, and I'm just going to put in an x for people who are familiar with algebra. So we're just going to imagine that this is a number that is x. So it's going to be x plus 30 plus 45 is 75 equals 180. And that means if something we don't know plus 75 is 180, then it must be 105 plus 75 is 180. So we know that this unknown number is going to be 105. Okay, so we know that that's 105 degrees in here. Okay, so we're just going to use the same method again, and they just want, so they don't even want the amount here. They just want the fraction of children who had seen no films, and they say specifically here give it in its lowest terms, meaning they want us to simplify. So nothing too complicated, we're just going to do 105, and then it would be very easy to get confused here and do 105 out of 180, but remember it still has to be out of all the children that they're talking about, so out of the whole 360 degrees. So there we pretty much got our answer already. So it's just put the thing we're interested in over the total. So 105 over 360. And then we're just going to simplify, so we can see ends in 5 and 0 means that they both must be multiples of 5. So let's just divide by 5. So 105 divided by 5. So the method I like for doing this is just kind of doing bus stop method in my head. And it's just something you need to practice really, but if you think about it, you've basically got all the same stuff written here as when you actually do the bus stop. You just need to do a few processes in your head. So I just think 5s into 1 doesn't go, 5s into 10 goes twice, 5s into 5 goes once, and then 5s into 360, 5 won't go into 3, but it will go into 36 7 times, with 1 left over, going to 10 2 times. And then I think, well, we've got an odd number on the top now, so I'm going to try and divide by 3. So I know 3 will go into 21 7 times, and then will 72 divide by 3? So 3 will go into 7 2 times with 1 left over, and 3 will go into 12 4 times. So we can definitely divide by 3. By 3. So 21 divided by 3 was 7, and then 72 divided by 3 was 2 and 7, 1, 24. So final answer for part B is going to be 7 over 24. Okay, and that's everything for today. So I hope you follow along with that okay. And there's going to be a quiz for this coming very soon. Okay, thanks everyone, and I will see you for a time and money lesson on Wednesday, 1 o'clock next week.